In Blackboard, to create extra credit, the first thing that you have to do is use this Create Column feature to create the extra credit column or create a gradable object like a test or a Dropbox assignment in lessons that will count as extra credit. Whichever method you use, the Create Column function or a gradable object in lessons, you must make the column or the gradable object worth 0 points. In this video, we'll use the Create Column function by clicking Create Column, and we'll call it Extra Credit. The primary display we're going to leave at Score because we want students to see how many extra credit points they get. We don't want them to see a percentage. No category, and we must make points possible 0. We scroll down, leave our options as they are, and click Submit. If you scroll to the end of the Grade Center, you see your extra credit column. However, it's not calculated in the Grade Center, and if we put points in there, they're not going to be counted at all. They'll just appear in this column, but they're not calculated into the weighted total. Depending on how you want this extra credit to count, you have to create a number of other columns. If you want the extra credit points to be added directly to the weighted total, which is the student's final grade, the first thing you have to do is create another column that adds the extra credit column to the weighted total column. Hover over Create Calculated Column and choose Total Column because we are going to total 2 columns. We can call this something like Final Grade with Extra Credit. We want the primary display to be percentage. We scroll down to select columns so that we can select which columns we want Blackboard to total. We don't want all grade columns totaled. We want only certain columns totaled. We want the weighted total to be added to the extra credit. And there's the extra credit assignment. We click it and we bring it over. Scroll down and click Submit. And at the end of the Grade Center, we see Final Grade with Extra Credit. But we probably want to rearrange these columns in the Grade Center, so we go to Manage, Column Organization. This Final Grade with Extra Credit should appear way up here under Weighted Total, so students can see the difference between their weighted total and their final grade after their extra credit is factored in. We'll leave extra credit where it is at the end of the Grade Center and click Submit. And you now see the weighted total followed by final grade with extra credit. And your extra credit column stays at the end of the Grade Center. The weighted total column and the final grade with extra credit column are going to be identical until you start adding extra credit points. Watch what happens to these 2 columns as I add extra credit points into the extra credit column. Your final grade changes. A word of caution, when you're adding extra credit this way to the weighted total, be mindful of how many points you allow for extra credit because of how drastically it changes the student's final grade. You also want to change the final grade with extra credit to your external grade. To do that, we click the arrow to the right of the Grade Center column and we click Set as External Grade because this is the grade that we want reported to Banner. We want the extra credit included for students who do the extra credit. For students who don't do the extra credit, you can leave these grade cells blank, or you can input a 0 simply as a marker for you so that you know the student did not complete the extra credit. When you input a 0, nothing will happen to the student's grade. He is not penalized for not completing extra credit. Let's say that you want to add the extra credit column to a category not to the entire weighted total. For example, I have 2 tests that are in a test category. I can add extra credit just to the test category. To add extra credit to a category, you have to create 3 columns and then reconfigure your weighted total. The first column is the extra credit column, which we've already created right here. Let's create the other 2 columns that we need. The first column that we need is a category average. And since we're going to add extra credit to the test category, we'll create a column that averages the tests. We need this column because we need something to add the extra credit to. Create calculated column, average column. We'll call this test average. We want the primary display to be percentage. Under select columns, we don't want all grade columns averaged. We just want the tests average. So we click selected columns and we choose the tests. We click each one and bring it into the selected columns box by clicking this arrow. There are only 2 tests in this class. When we're finished, we click submit. And notice at the end of the grade center, there's your test average column. The third column that we need is a total column that adds the test average to the extra credit. Create calculated column, total column. And we can call this plus extra credit. We want the primary display to be percentage. Under select columns, again, we don't want all grade columns to be totaled. We want only selected grade columns to be totaled. We want the extra credit column to be added to the test average column. We click submit. And we now have all the columns we need in order to add extra credit to the test category. First of all, let's rearrange these columns. Manage, column organization. Let's move the test average column and the plus extra credit column so that they follow the tests. The test average column will show students their test average without extra credit added, and the plus extra credit column will show students their test average after extra credit is added. Let's submit this. The last thing we have to do is reconfigure the weighted total. Click the arrow to the right of the weighted total column and click Edit Column Information. Let's scroll down. Our test category is weighted at 25%, but we don't want to weight that category anymore, so we're going to delete it. And we're going to replace it with the plus extra credit column, because this is our test average plus the extra credit. And we're going to weight this at 25%. And we're going to click submit. I'm going to enter extra credit in the extra credit column. Right now the plus extra credit and the test average are the same because the student hasn't earned any extra credit. Once he earns extra credit, the plus extra credit column will change, and so will the weighted total. For the first student, let's add 10 extra credit points, and both the weighted total and the plus extra credit changed. And you do this for each student. And notice that when you add extra credit to a category rather than to the weighted total is not impacted nearly as drastically, so you can be a little bit more liberal with how many extra credit points you give a student when the extra credit points are added only to a category or only to an assignment.